Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashesha Madhavaṁ Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashesha Madhavaṁ Grace the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Kṛṣṇa Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Can you pass me the book, please? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 26. A description of the hellish planets, and we'll read the chapter summary. The 26th chapter describes how a sinful man goes to different hells, where he is punished in various ways by the assistance of Yamarāja, as stated in the Bhagavad-gita 3.27, Prakate kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudātma kartaham iti manyate. Can you turn off that fan too, please? The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. The foolish person thinks he is independent of any law. He thinks there is no God or regulative principle and that he can do whatever he likes. Thus he engages in different sinful activities. And as a result, he is put into different hellish conditions life after life. To be punished by the laws of nature. The basic principle of his suffering is that he foolishly thinks himself independent, although he is strictly under the control of the laws of material nature. These laws act due to the influence of the three modes of nature, and therefore each human being also works under three different types of influence. According to how he acts, he suffers different reactions in his next life or in this life. Religious persons act differently from atheists, and therefore they suffer different reactions. Śukadeva Gosvāmī describes the following 28 hells. Tamisra, Anda Tamisra, Raurava, Maharorava, Kumbhipaka, Kala Sutra, Asipatravana, Sukaramuka, Andakupa, Krimi Bhojana, Sandangsha, Taptasormi, Vraja Kantaka Shal Mali, Vaitarani, Puyoda, Prana Rodha, Visha Sana, Lala Bhaksha, Sara Mayadana, Avichi, Ayapana, Chara Kardama, Rokshagana Bhojana, Shula Prota, Danda Shuka, Avata Nirodhana, Paryavartana, and Suchi Mukha. A person who steals another's money, wife, or possessions is put into the hell known as Tamisra. A man who tricks someone and enjoys his wife is put into the extremely hellish condition known as Anda Tamisra. A foolish person absorbed in the bodily concept of life, who, on the basis of this principle, maintains himself or his wife and children by committing violence against other living entities, is put into the hell known as Raurava. There the animals he killed take birth as creatures called Rurus and cause great suffering for him. Those who kill different animals and birds and then cook them are put by the agents of Yamarāja into the hell known as Kumbhipaka, where they are boiled in oil. A person who kills a Brahmin is put into the hell known as Kala Sutra, where the land, perfectly level and made of copper, is as hot as an oven. The killer of a Brahmin burns in that land for many years. One who does not follow scriptural injunctions, but who does everything whimsically, or follows some rascals, put into the hell known as Asipatravana. A government official who poorly administers justice or punishes an innocent man is taken by the assistance of Yamarāja to the hell known as Sukaramuka, where he is mercilessly beaten. God has given advanced conscience to the human being, therefore he can feel the suffering and happiness of other living beings. The human being bereft of his conscience, however, is prone to cause suffering for other living beings. The assistance of Yamarāja puts such a person into the hell known as Andakupa, where he receives proper punishment from his victims. Any person who does not receive or feed a guest properly, but who personally enjoys eating, is put into the hell known as Krimi Bhojana. There are an unlimited number of worms and insects continuously bite him. A thief is put into a hell known as Sandangsha. A person who has sexual relations with a woman who is not to be enjoyed is put into the hell known as Taptasormi. A person who enjoys sexual relations with animals is put into the hell known as Vraja Kantaka Shamali. A person born into an aristocratic or highly placed family but who does not act accordingly is put into the hellish trench of blood, pus, and urine called the Vaitarani river. One who lives like an animal is put into the hell called Puyoda. A person who mercilessly kills animals in the forest without sanction is put into the hell called Prana-roda. A person who kills animals in the name of religious sacrifice is put into the hell named Vishasana. A man who forces his wife to drink his semen is put into the hell called Lala Bhaksha. One who sets a fire or administers poison to kill someone is put into the hell known as Saramayadana. A man who earns his livelihood by bearing false witness is put into the hell known as Avicii. A person addicted to drinking wine is put into the hell named Ayapana. One who violates etiquette by not showing proper respect to superiors is put into the hell known as Charakardama. A person who sacrifices human beings to Bhairava is put into the hell called Rokshagana Bhojana. A person who kills pet animals is put into the hell called Shulaprota. A person who gives trouble to others is put into the hell known as Dundas Shuka. One who imprisons a living entity within a cave is put into the hell known as Avata Nirodhana. A person who shows unwarranted wrath toward a guest in his house is put into the hell called Paryavartana. A person maddened by possessing riches and thus deeply absorbed in thinking of how to collect money is put into the hell known as Suchi Mukha. After describing the hellish planets, Śukadeva Gosvāmī describes how pious persons are elevated to the highest planetary system where the demigods live, and how they can come back again to this earth when the results of their pious activities are finished. Finally, he describes the universal form of the Lord and glorifies the Lord's activities. Raujovacha Maharsho Etad Vaicharityam Lokasya Katamiti. Text 1. Translation. King Parikshit inquired from Śukadeva Gosvāmī, "My dear sir, why are the living entities put into different material situations? Kindly explain this to me." Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the different hellish planets within this universe are held slightly above the Garbhodaka Ocean and remain situated there. This chapter describes how all sinful persons go to these hellish planets and how they are punished there by the assistance of Yamarāja. Different individuals with different bodily features enjoy or suffer various reactions according to their past deeds. So we'll read a few more. Text 2. The great sage Śukadeva Gosvāmī said, "My dear king, in this material world there are three kinds of activities, those in the mode of goodness, those in the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Because all people are influenced by the three modes of material nature, the results of their activities are also divided into three. One who acts in the mode of goodness is religious and happy. One who acts in passion achieves mixed misery and happiness. And one who acts under the influence of ignorance is always unhappy and lives like an animal. Because of the varying degrees to which the living entities are influenced by the different modes of nature, their destinations are also of different varieties. Just as by executing various pious activities one achieves different positions in heavenly life, by acting impiously one achieves different positions in hellish life. Those who are activated by the material mode of ignorance engage in impious activities, and according to the extent of their ignorance they are placed in different grades of hellish life. If one acts in the mode of ignorance because of madness, his resulting misery is the least severe. One who acts impiously but knows the distinction between pious and impious activities is placed in a hell of intermediate severity. And for one who acts impiously and ignorantly because of atheism, the resultant hellish life is the worst. Because of ignorance, every living entity has been carried by various desires into thousands of different hellish planets since time immemorial. I shall now try to describe them as far as possible. King Parikshit inquired from Śukadeva Gosvāmī, "My dear Lord, are the hellish regions outside the universe, within the covering of the universe, or in different places on this planet?" The great sage Śukadeva Gosvāmī answered, all the hellish planets are situated in the intermediate space between the three worlds in the Garbhodaka Ocean. They lie on the southern side of the universe beneath Bhumandala and slightly above the water of the Garbhodaka Ocean. Pitṛloka is also located in this region between the Garbhodaka Ocean and the lower planetary systems. All the residents of Pitṛloka, headed by Agnostics, meditate in great samadhi on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always wish their families well. Purport. As previously explained, below our planetary system are 7 lower planetary systems, the lowest of which is called Part-1. Beneath Part-1 are all our other planets known as Naraka Loka, or the hellish planets. At the bottom of the universe lies the Garbhodaka Ocean. Therefore, the hellish planets lie between Pātālaloka and Garbhodaka Ocean. And the Garbhodaka Ocean. So one more. Text 6. The king of the Pitas is Yamarāja, the very powerful son of the sun god. He resides in Pitṛloka with his personal assistants and, while abiding by the rules and regulations set down by the Supreme Lord, has his agents, the Yamadutas, bring all the sinful men to him immediately upon their death. After bringing them within his jurisdiction, he properly judges them according to their specific sinful activities and sends them to one of the many hellish planets for suitable punishments. Purport. Yamarāja is not a fictional or mythological character. He has his own abode, Pitṛloka, of which he is king. Agnostics may not believe in hell, but Śukadeva Gosvāmī affirms the existence of the Naraka planets, which lie between the Garbhodaka Ocean and Pitṛloka. Yamarāja is appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to see that the human beings do not violate his rules and regulations. As confirmed in Bhagavad-gita 4:17, karmaṇo hyapi boddhavyaṁ cha vikarmaṇaḥ, akarmaṇaś cha boddhavyaṁ, gahanā karmaṇo gatiḥ. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. One should understand the nature of karma, vikarma, and akarma, and one must act accordingly. This is the law of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conditioned souls who have come to this material world for sense gratification are allowed to enjoy their senses under certain regulative principles. If they violate these regulations, they are judged and punished by Yamarāja. He brings them to the hellish planets and properly chastises them to bring them back to Kṛṣṇa consciousness. By the influence of māyā, however, the conditioned souls remain infatuated with the mode of ignorance. Thus, in spite of repeated punishment by Yamarāja, they do not come to their senses, but continue to live within the material condition, committing sinful activities again and again. Om Gyanativedandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Maditamyana Tasmai Śukadeva Namaha Makam Karitavachalam Pangam Langayate Gadimakapatamaham Vande Śukadundin Taranam Vancha Kapadrivishta Kripasindaveva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Śrivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Kṛṣṇa Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. One devotee years ago, he was having some extreme doubts about Kṛṣṇa consciousness, which is not uncommon. It's very common for people to have doubts. Anyways. And one of his, and he managed to stay around, he's still around. But one of his doubts is that, okay, why would Kṛṣṇa create these hellish planets? And he was doubting Kṛṣṇa on that basis, because this is just terrible. And if we read a basic description of them, but in this chapter, some more details will be brought up in the verses and the purports. So why would Kṛṣṇa do this? And a lot of atheistic people think like this, especially in relation to the mainstream or widely accepted Abrahamic conception or religious conception of eternal damnation of the soul. Because if you read all these descriptions, it is very intense, and it is just pure suffering. So atheistic people have problems with this, especially eternal damnation, that if God's so merciful, why would he do this? So, which makes sense. I mean, it does make sense. Why would Kṛṣṇa create, specifically, eternal damnation of the soul? Just for some, has been mentioned many times by different devotees, a thought crime. It's a thought crime. It means you didn't really do anything. Like, you may have been a very good person, actually, from all different types of standards. You know, you're vegan, and you're this or that, and take care of your family, and you don't hurt anybody. You follow the 10 Commandments practically, besides loving God. But still go to hell. So people have problems with this, and yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense because it's intelligent. It's an intelligent conclusion. Why would God create eternal damnation of the soul? But interesting enough is that it's widely accepted, like widely accepted by thousands of people. I say millions of people, thousands, millions of people. You could see how intelligent they are. Not very intelligent. Prabhupada said they have, right, cow dung for their brain. And that, whatever, that's, I mean, we don't just say that about those people, we say it about a lot of people, actually. May sound a little proud, but this devotee was saying, still, these hellish planets are there. Like, why would Kṛṣṇa do that, even temporarily? And I was trying to explain to him, well, it's temporary. I mean, you suffer. I mean, excuse me, you commit sinful activity and you suffer. But it's temporary. It's not eternal. And it is supposed to be for the reformation of the soul, so they wake up. That's the idea. They're supposed to wake up from all of this suffering, being punished, and it's merciful that Kṛṣṇa doesn't create an eternal situation like that. Can you imagine? I mean, eternal situation. I mean, that's all these descriptions. So. So anyways, I don't know, but this person, he still didn't really accept it, and he wasn't understanding. But yeah, he still happens to be around. So for pious people, they think, okay, this is a description of hell. This isn't for me. I'm pious. I'm a good person. I'm religious. I'm in the mode of goodness. This isn't for me. Which is true, if in one sense, but in another sense, actually the religious person, the pious person, shouldn't think like that. These descriptions are for them as well. Like, it's very common, for example, in the Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains many things within there, the different anartas, for example, the different obstacles one will or can experience in bhakti, and also the different stages of bhakti, which we won't get into all those details because there's a lot of details. But one of the things he explains is that there are anartas coming from pious activity. It means pious activity, living a pious life. There's anartas that develop from that. And what is that? That is attachment or addiction to the mode of goodness. To the mode of goodness. For example, I met somebody here recently and at the temple, and she was telling me, her and her husband, and that how they're very pious, and how she does yoga, and she's a yoga teacher, and how they raise a bunch of money every year. I asked them how much money do they raise. It's $10,000, $20,000. Sometimes they get companies to give $250,000 to feeding poor people in India, which is a pious thing. But where is their surrender to Kṛṣṇa? Where is their love for Kṛṣṇa? People could be attached or addicted to pious life or the mode of goodness, but that is an anartha. That is attachment. That is in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada said one time, he was at which has been brought up before, but we're explaining this topic. We're discussing this chapter. So he was at somebody's home and was a pious Indian man, and Prabhupada had just finished dinner, and he was with some of his disciples, and Prabhupada was speaking in very hushed tones to his disciples about this Indian man and his family. And Prabhupada said, "You see this Indian man?" He said, "He could follow the principles of varnashram, but still he'll go to hell." Which is interesting, because it's especially in Kali Yuga, just to be in the mode of goodness, just to be a good person, just to be a pious person is very difficult, because there's so much influence of evil influences of Kali Yuga. So just to try to live on that platform is not safe. Just to be a pious person is not safe, because the modes are always competing. And of course, we're coming to the 6th canto, and you had a Jama who was a good Brahmin boy. He was sattva gun. He was in the mode of goodness. He wasn't sattva gun. He was in sattva gun, in the mode of goodness. But that wasn't good enough, because you see the result. He became bewildered. And of course, we could say, "Oh, hey, well, he was saved in the end." Well, not everybody's saved in the end. This is maybe not a rare circumstance, but it is not something that happens all the time, that he's saved in the end. There's many people who are not saved in the end. So the Jamil, the pastime of the 6th canto, is trying to inform us that we have to be very careful, not just to be in the mode of goodness, but to be not lovers of the mode of goodness, to be lovers of Kṛṣṇa. And what to speak of mode of passion, ignorance, that's like completely out of the question. Lovers of the mode of ignorance and passion. So it is a challenge not to be attached to that which is inspired by the mode of passion and ignorance. It is a challenge in Kali Yuga especially. And until we have come to the platform of loving Kṛṣṇa, we should be careful about not focusing too much on what is wrong with others. Because it's very dangerous, actually. If we don't love Kṛṣṇa, then focusing on what is wrong with others, it's very dangerous, because that means that we're not. That means there's a chance that could spiral down into becoming a full-on aparadi, or a half aparadi, Vaishnava aparadi, offender towards Vaishnavas. And the fact that we feel we have so much time on our hands to be thinking about what's wrong with people is not good. It's not a good sign. The only reason advanced devotees point out what is wrong with people or a situation is simply for the benefit of others. But the fact is, ultimately, they don't, they rather not do it. Like Srila Prabhupada said, the only problem he had with being a guru is that he had to point out the defects of others. He didn't like that. But if we haven't learned to develop Kṛṣṇa, why would we? Why is it that we would feel that we have so much time to be pointing out the defects of others? Shouldn't we be using that time, instead of using the time to think about the defects of others, the defects of a yatra, the defects of a community? Shouldn't we be using that time to cultivate our love for Kṛṣṇa? That is intelligence. To use our time, to use our energy, to think about how to cultivate Kṛṣṇa consciousness and practically do it. Because all this business of just pointing out the defects of others, where does it lead? It doesn't lead towards love of Kṛṣṇa. It doesn't. And it never will. So instead of thinking about what is wrong in a particular situation, we should try to think of what is right. That's positive and more enlivening. And if we have the spiritual strength, and if we have the ability to help the situation, then we may think about what is wrong sometimes. But even advanced devotees, it's not like they're thinking about what's wrong with this situation all the time. That's unhealthy. You know, they have their morning sadhana where they're just thinking about Kṛṣṇa and Kṛṣṇa consciousness. They have their evening sadhana where they're thinking about Kṛṣṇa and Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Throughout the day, they may think about what's wrong with the situation, try to help. But because it could turn into a very hellish mentality, because right here we're talking about hell. Hellish mentality, the Padma Purana explains that, is what? You see Charanamrita as ordinary. Look at it, it's just some store-bought yogurt with some store-bought honey. And look at, there's even gnats flying around it. So ordinary. Or you see the deity, just stone, right? Just a stone up there, or wood, you know, Jagannath, right? It's not Kṛṣṇa. As Prabhupada would say about the Mayavadis, they think everything's Kṛṣṇa besides Kṛṣṇa. It's not Kṛṣṇa. The spiritual master is an ordinary man. The devotees are coming from a particular... Start seeing the devotees ordinary. See, everything is just mundane. So that is what the vision of seeing faults can turn into. If you just increase it, expand it, that's what it turns into. It can turn into. So yeah, it's very important that we try to do what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do, and that is to love Kṛṣṇa as our main business. Because those who do not ultimately learn how to appreciate what's given to them that thing will be stripped from them. They will not be able to maintain it. So we have to learn how to appreciate devotees, Krishna consciousness, everything Krishna has given us. Because even cannibals even cannibals want nothing to do with ingrates. There's a story like that in the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata, these are, I mean, how much low class can you get? Cannibals, they eat human beings. I mean, I don't know how much low class you could get. But even them, they avoid ingrates. I don't want to keep them away from me. Just like you go to prison, if a person goes to prison, a lot of prisoners, they're in there for, killing people and doing all types of things like that. But a lot of the times, the child abusers, they also go to prison. And then those who are in prison, they see child abusers, they attack them and beat them up because they see how low class it is. So these cannibals don't want anything to do with ingrate. So we have to be very careful not to be grateful, not in a real way, not for the nice sense gratification Krishna's given me, whatever, but in a real way for the different aspects of Krishna consciousness. And that's a safe position to be in. So last thing is that Yamarāja, he's seen all the people are coming. They're coming to him. What should we do with this person? What should we do with this person? He's judging them, right? And then they're going to all these hells, which we're going to hear about more and more throughout this chapter. So in the particular case of Jagai and Madai, there's this is called Yamarāja Sankirtan, chapter 14 of the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. So he's very happy hearing about Jagai and Madai's deliverance. So this is what happens here. His body, flooded with love, Lord Chaitanya happily dances. Brahma, Shiva, and all the demigods always serve Lord Chaitanya. So we'll read a few verses. Without the Lord's order, no one has the power to see him. Again and again, the demigods serve the Lord. Seeing the deliverance of these two Brahman demons, the demigods happily said, Lord Chaitanya is so merciful that he has delivered even these two. By doing this, the Lord has placed hope in my heart. Now I hope, certainly I will also be delivered. As they returned to their homes, the demigods happily spoke these words among themselves. Yamarāja, the king of pious deeds, regularly came to Lord Chaitanya's home, and thus he saw all these activities of the Lord. Lord Yamarāja asked Chitragupta, who's the scribe, right? Those who committed, he's keeping count. What sin did these two perform, sins that the Lord forgave? Chitragupta replied, Please hear, O Yamarāja, why should you struggle to attain what cannot be attained? If 100,000 scribes write for 1 month, they will not soon come to the end of their sins. If you wish to hear the reports of the 100,000 scribes, then by all means hear them. The messengers never stop bringing reports of these two sinners' sins. The scribes have come to think these reports a great annoyance. At every moment reporting these two sinners' sins, the messengers are so exhausted they are on the verge of death. The messenger said, These two sinners commit so many sins that I find it a great burden to write them all. Why must I suffer in this way? No proper punishment is written for the many sins I have written. The records are big like a mountain. We scribes weep as we record the sins of these two sinners. How will we survive the torture we feel? Lord Chaitanya made those sins as small as a sesame seed. And then he threw the sesame seed far away. Please give the order, and we will throw all these records into the ocean. Yamarāja had never seen anything as glorious as the mercy that delivered these two sinners. Yamarāja is by nature a great Vaishnava. He is religion personified. He knows all that is in the heart of the religion of devotional service. When he heard Chitraguप्ta's words, Yamarāja at once forgot his own body. He was filled with the ecstasy of love for Lord Kṛṣṇa. He fell unconscious on his chariot. There were no signs of life anywhere on his body. There was a great commotion. Chitragupt and the others grasped Yamarāja's body and wept. Traveling in their chariots, the demigods sang a kirtan, but Yamarāja's chariot was filled with lamentation. Having seen the deliverance of the two Brahman demons, the demigods were singing the glories of the Lord as they traveled. So it continues, but and he starts dancing. Yamarāja gets up from his ecstatic slumber and he starts dancing in ecstasy. Seeing Yamarāja's ecstasy of love for Lord Kṛṣṇa, Yamarāja's associates fell to the ground and began to roll about in bliss. Overcome with love for Lord Kṛṣṇa, Chitragupt loudly clapped his hands. So they're very happy, seeing how they became free. Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments? Tyler? Or
this quote that was quoted, is it purport Prakriteka Imanani?
yeah.
The beginning of the intro. Oh, the intro, right. So that verse should read the translation. Boy, long list else. The bewildered spirit soul, now the spirit soul bewildered by the false ego thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. It's the false ego that's bewildering. Ahankara vimudhatma.
Yeah.
That's what it says in the book. Read the book.
You have something, Tyler?
What was the significant? I think that was like a slam dunk, but only you could. Well, what was that?
This book, the fifth canto.
Okay.
We haven't got some of the books that I worked on. We're updating the translations of the Gita so that it's in line with the 1983 Gita. This one was never updated. When we get to it, we'll soon have fifth canto. Hopefully, that's
wonderful. Thank you. That was really. It was slogging to go through that introduction and all those different planet names and all that Sanskrit, and that was really good. You stayed the course. It was like a marathon. So we're going to go through and in detail study all of those 20-some hellish planets? Okay. So I had a couple, these are just short questions just to kind of put into context what's going on. So when they said that those 7 planets going below Earth, ending at that one Pātālaloka, or is that, are those the subterranean heavenly planets? So what are those 7 planets going downward then to where that final planet is then the demarcation line between the Garbhodaka Ocean?
Well, they were the hellish, right? That's what was said. Yeah. One of them is Bali Maharaj. You could speak into the mic. Sure.
Yeah, so the 7 planets going downward from Earth? Yeah. What?
directly
Below, yeah. So
Yeah,
what are
but-
those 7 planets going downward? What's their function? Are they in a group, or are they all different?
No,
going
they're
up?
different. They're different.
Okay.
Abodes, and then they're not as severe as a punishment in hell, but they're generally not that a good place to live.
Okay.
So don't go there.
And the heavenly planets are going upward from Earth, up to
Yeah.
Brahma Loka? Or, okay. So those are like less bad hellish planets going downward, and then we're getting into like the real bad, purely hellish planets. Okay. So it was saying in the introduction that they're Yamarāja's laws. So is he like a judge that's given the laws and then he enforces them, or did he make these laws?
Yeah, he's a servant of Kṛṣṇa,
Okay.
so he's just doing his service.
So they're his laws because he's enforcing the laws that were already
He's a law
established.
enforcer.
And then do we get a description of him as a person? Do we get, because there's a position that we're hearing all about. Do we get, because he sounds like an awesome guy. He's very pious, you know, and a good servant. And you think he'd be merciful to us while we're down there because he's like, you know, we're fallen servants. He also is really nice servant of Kṛṣṇa.
There seems like there'll be some description, but I don't know.
But do we get to learn about him as like a young boy?
Detailed,
And like,
no.
went to school? You know,
No.
and like, okay, all right. He seems like an interesting character. He's like the best judge of judges, you know? Like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's-
Wow.
But can I make
Childhood.
So in this, I think it's in the 6th canto. There's an important series of. It is in the 6th canto where Yamarāja has his. I don't want to say soliloquy, but this is his most time when he preaches, when he gives instruction, and he's giving instruction to his dutas. Dutas means his messengers. It's the whole passage of Vijamil, which is the next section of Bhagavatam, the beginning of the 6th canto. This is the end of the 5th canto. So Yamarāja doesn't make the laws. There's this verse, probably would always quote, Dharma mi sakshat bhagavat panitam, that the Dharma is all enunciated by Bhagavan. They're all made by. He's the enforcer of the law. Just like the judge doesn't make the laws, he just, you know, he allots the punishment according to the proper, you know, whatever you've done bad. So he's the supreme judge, and he takes the reports with the Chitragupta is keeping track. Yeah, and so then he awards punishment, and some, you know, it's pretty hellish punishment. When you read it, your hand will stand on end. Not out of ecstasy. Hare Krishna.
So then when you are in front of him, he sees your specific crime and then sends you to a specific hellish planet based on your crime?
Yeah.
And then you don't graduate through the other hellish planets back here. You do your time there, and then you come back. Do you come back as rain again, like heavenly planet? What do you go through?
Come up, you get put into a certain, you get trained up. And Bhagavad explained it, like your consciousness is trained so that, okay, now you can take the body of a dog, or now you can take the body of a favorite, you know, beast, the worm and stool, you know, and then you gradually come up. You never,
animal.
There's no eternal damnation. That's crazy.
Okay.
You come up.
But is it better to come back to Earth from heavenly planets falling downward than it is from hellish planets? Yeah, see, that's why I'm a big fan of those, because when you start over, it's a little more. It's still pretty bad, though, as Vaikuntha was saying. Yeah, going through that death process. And then you said a while ago that mode of goodness is you see a problem and you go fix it. Mode of ignorance is you see a problem and you just complain about it. Is there a mode of passion, you see a problem, and is it kind of somewhere in between? You get 20 guys to work on it, and then you guys don't ever finish?
Mode of passion?
Yeah, like what would signify you see a problem in the mode of passion?
Well, I mean, there's different, you could say...
Do it 90%, hit your finger, yell, and then go.
Like there's mode of goodness ways to try to fix a problem. There's mode of passion ways to fix a problem. There's mode of ignorance ways to fix a problem.
Which isn't to fix the problem. You just complain about it. Right?
Yeah, or you just don't fix it, or it takes 50 years. Yeah. Yeah. It's just based on, like let's say somebody's having a hard time in the ashram, and then, of course, you'd say so many details and how are they having a hard time, this and that, but you'd say a mode of goodness way is to sit down with the person, to talk with them, to try to help them, to try to understand where they're coming from, and try to encourage them. And, you know, a mode of ignorance way is just not do anything about it. Just fill up the temple with a bunch of people who really shouldn't be in the temple, and mode of passion way, maybe you could say trying to deal with the problem is not really understanding where the person's coming, just kind of jumping to conclusions and, okay, you're a rascal, just get out, you know, leave. Shaving off his shika, you know, breaking his neck beads, throwing him out on the alley, you know. We don't ever want to see your face around here before because you were, you know, smoking pot in the ashram. And it's like, well, no, it was actually somebody, oh, no. And if he really wasn't, then, you know. So anyways, there's different ways of dealing with things.
And that's a question you did so nicely explaining about the trap of the mode of goodness, right? Why it's dangerous to be there long term or to get attached to it. Bhaktisala was telling me recently, he heard a lecture where they were saying another dangerous aspect of it is you're doing so good up there, you're feeling so great, you don't really want to come down to handle problems or get involved with other things, you know, because you're. And he was the person was saying too that it was someone that was preaching them at the Rath Yatra in LA that like if you're doing really good, you know, for Kṛṣṇa, he wants to give you some problems to handle for him. Like, Dr. Kṛṣṇa, let me take on some problems for you. But in mode of goodness, you're kind of like, hey, I'm good right now. Like, let's just keep it going.
Not wanting to deal with problems, it's, you know, it might not be everybody's service to do that, deal with problems. Because my experience is that you give some problems for people to deal with, and they don't know how to deal with them, and they just make a mess. And I've, you know, certain people for years, I've seen, it's not like I just knew them for a day, but they can't accept problems. They don't know how to handle them, which is fine. Just like, you know, that's why generally there's a few managers, 1, 2, 3, because other people don't know how to deal with problems. They make a mess. Just like we went to Home Depot, and I went with Michael. I mean, I like Michael's association, but you may like going to Home Depot, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm there all the time.
So we had to go to a few stores, which you may like that, but I don't, you know. So anyways, I was going there to these few stores, and Michael ordered 3 sets of tables and chairs, but it was backlogged and it was canceled, blah, blah, blah. There were some problems. So then Michael was telling this lady, so can we cancel it? Can we this, that? And she was, yeah, you can't, but this. And she was having problems, you know, trying to solve the problem. So what did she do? She said, let me talk to my manager, you know. And the manager called over, yeah, this, and click a button, and then that's it. So, but the employee couldn't deal with it. So anyways, not everybody has to deal with problems. It's actually better. In many ways, it's better that they don't even try to deal with them, because they just create a mess.
Good qualification of that principle that was shared.
But, so in other words, for someone just to be in the mode of goodness and not want to come down to deal with the problems, maybe this is better. Okay. Just, you know, let them. Of course, mode of goodness means, and with addition of the practices of Kṛṣṇa consciousness and Kṛṣṇa consciousness, you know, mix or whatever, but that's fine. Yes?
The Prabhupada said, but if you see something in the mode of ignorance, and you don't try to correct it, then you become also affected by the mode of ignorance. So someone may be in the mode of goodness, but if he doesn't try to correct it, then he also becomes affected by the mode of ignorance. So,
well, one thing is that sometimes to train people to do things is very difficult because it is not their nature. They have a different type of nature. So, for example, to always tell a person to be clean. Now, because, and of course, cleanliness, it's to be a Vaishnava means to be clean, right? Externally, internally. But again, many of this is also. In other words, you don't have to always be instructing a Brahmin. Okay, be clean. Okay, you know, wake up early. Okay, do this, that, and you know, keep on. It means they're not a Brahmin. It means they're just, you know, they're. Or tell a Brahmin to come and listen to class. It's like they like to listen to class. So it will be more difficult to train people who do not have those particular qualifications to be clean, for example. But in an ashram setting, I've just kind of come to the conclusion, I don't know what else to do, but I just kind of, at least for myself, I just, like for the pujari room, for example, and there's always a mess back there. You know, I'm always wiping down the counters, and actually, I don't know if they would get wiped down if I didn't wipe them down. I'm always wiping down the counters. I'm always cleaning up, people's messes from cooking and this and that, and in the pujari room. And Parashakti's doing that too. She's always sweeping, although it says everybody sweep every night. No. So, like the communal living means like cleaning up after people. Bathroom is just cleaning up after people. But that shouldn't mean that, okay, great, that there's a few people cleaning up after everybody, wonderful. But it should be, we should try to clean up after ourselves, and we should try to keep everything clean as far as possible. I mean, Prabhupada wanted revolutionary cleanliness, which is very high standard Prabhupada had. So, for example, that prasadam room. Now, it may not be a particular person's service. Maybe it should be someone's service, but it's no one's service. No one's service means no one's service. But as a principle, for example, okay, you go into the room and, there's like, I don't know, one of them's completely empty. There's like 5 empty containers, and then there's 4 full ones, this and that. So someone may say, okay, well, because it's no one's service, all right, here's a mess. Let me just put all of them let me just stack them all up and bring them to the sink. It only takes a few minutes. Or, hey, there's a piece of trash on the ground. Like, well, whose service is it to sweep the patio? Well, it's not my service, so I'm not picking up that piece of trash. But if there's a piece of trash, you can pick it up. So that's kind of part of communal living. And we should also think that, at people's homes, it's like people like to keep their homes clean, unless they're like animals. But people like to keep their homes clean. I remember I was with some devotees in New Jersey, and we were staying at their house, and my spiritual master was there. And this Mataji, she was cooking, the husband of this, or the wife of this devotee. And anyway, she was from Russia. Not an important detail, but so we went to the program, right? We're about to go to New Jersey Temple. Then she said, I'm going to stay back and clean the kitchen. And I said, well, it looks good enough to me, because in many ways it did. But she said, no, I'm going to stay back and really clean it, and she really, thoroughly. So people like to keep their homes clean, and especially if we're the guest in someone's home, we don't want to just mess everything up. And so we're the guests in Krishna's home, and so we want to keep it clean for Krishna's pleasure, which means sometimes we just have to do things that's not designated for us to do. But aside from doing things that are not designated for us to do, everybody should be in the mood of trying to keep things clean, so people don't have to go up and clean after everybody. And aside from that, there should be designated people to clean things, or else it's just not going to get clean, thoroughly. So, anyways, whatever you want to take from that.
Prabhu, we have 2 questions on the Zoom.
Okay, I think Dimitri has a mic. Looks like he's...
So, what's the significance of sending jivas to the hellish planets if when they come back, they do not come to their senses but continue to live within the material condition and continue committing sinful activities? Whereas if you see sometimes the immediate reaction could be more reformatory, I guess.
Well, all of what we go through actually remains impacted in our, or you could say, within our subtle body. So, for example, in my last life, I may have been trying to be a great yogi, and I may have lost control of my senses, and whatever, fell into degradation, sensuality, and yogi means a man, and of course yogis could be women too. But I was a man yogi, and then I, fell into some association with a woman, and I just completely lost my Krishna consciousness, and then I died, and so that having many experiences that in past lives, and what to speak of going to hell and whatever other else. that all remains in the subtle body, and there's a certain particular mentality that develops over time. Like one time, Tirthamaj was telling me about this one devotee who wasn't fond of reading Prabhupada's books, just because he liked to be busy or whatever. And then Tirthamaj said that, oh yeah, this person has cultivated not reading books for many lifetimes. So certain things, like it says in the Bhagavad-gita, Kṛṣṇa says a person who is a yogi in their last life, they're naturally attracted to the yogic principles in the next life. So the bad experiences we have, the hellish experiences, those act as a teacher for us in that they remain in the subtle body, although we may not be conscious of them. Like sometimes people are scared of heights, right? Not everybody is, but some people are. So maybe that's, some things happen in the last lives in which they had some problems with heights, right? Falling, etc. So.
The question I had is, it is described that for certain sinful activities, you want to go on a punishment on different planets.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you just go through one planet or through all of them? Or it depends on how vicious you were?
As far as I understand, the sinful activity you commit, you get a corresponding hell. So it says, you do this, you go to this hell, you do this, you go to that hell. Not that you take a tour of all of them.
What if you committed a lot of those sins?
Yeah, if you committed a lot of those sins, we'll have to see what the chapter says. But they kind of make it sound like, okay, if you do this, then you go there. But what if they're doing all of them then?
Because if you find people,
did they go on a tour? Yeah, many people do all of these. They're lobster cookers. They steal. They have sex with a bunch of women who they shouldn't have sex with, which actually means like most of the women that people have sex with, they shouldn't have sex with. And that goes vice versa for women out there. Means most men women have sex with, they shouldn't have sex with. It's not just, it goes both ways. So many of these people fit all these qualifications, just like Jaga and Madhe. It said they broke all the rules of the Manu Samhita. So on that basis, you could say from a logical perspective, but we'll have to look in Shastra, that yeah, they could take tour of different parts of hell. But if somebody accepts these descriptions as fact, if somebody accepts these descriptions as fact, it means a lot of people are going in the wrong direction, to say the least. So therefore, Vaishnavas, they have compassion for these people. They're not just selfish, self-centered, egotistical ingrates, but they're selfless, they're compassionate, which part of that is being grateful. They're grateful to what Krishna has given them, and part of being grateful is trying to give, appreciate it, and give it for the benefit of others. That's what it means to preach. Preaching doesn't mean we don't have anything better else to do. I'm a neophyte, I have to preach this. And preaching means we want to save people, actually, from going to hell. Of course, we usually don't talk like that, but that's what we're trying to do. Did you have another?
No, thank you.
Okay, so is there two more on Zoom? I'm losing audience here by the minute. Two more on Zoom?
Kṛṣṇa Prabhu, thank you for the class.
Thank you.
One comment, one question. My takeaway is that we should try to focus on the good things instead of the bad things in our devotional life.
It's healthy, yeah.
And the question is, what happens to people who are trying to be devotees and they see some activities as transcendental and some as mundane? Are they just mayavadis? Are they devotees? Are these people going to hell? What's their...
For people who are trying to be devotees, and you're saying that they see some bad and some good?
Right, like some service appeals to them, like some they see as mundane.
Oh, well, all service should be seen as transcendental. Nothing about service should be seen as mundane. And if a person doesn't understand it's transcendental, then they should try to understand how everything's transcendental. Prabhupada said that you may be worshiping Krishna Balarama and Vrindavan, who are Krishna's blackish, Balaram's whitish, right? But he said the person who's mopping the floor of the Krishna Balarama temple, which is black and white tile, they should be seen as, the service should be seen the same. So all service is transcendental, but if we have a particular inclination to a particular service, that's okay, that's natural, and we could go for that. And try to be pure devotees in regards to whatever service we're doing. But if we sometimes people think, oh, these devotees, they're so mundane, right? The people in my community, the people in my yatra, the people in my ashram are so mundane. They have so many faults, which may be true. But there's different types of devotees. Sometimes people judge the Hare Krishna movement on the basis of their interaction with one devotee. Bad interaction. But there's Kanishta devotees, there's Madhyama devotees, there are Uttama devotees. There's Kanishta, Kanishta Madhyama, right? Uttama Madhyama means lower class, middle class, higher class devotees, and in those classes they're advanced to different degrees. So just because for somebody, for example, at our temple or at a yatra, we say, oh, these people seem so materially motivated. Well, maybe they are. That's called Kanishta-adhikari. But just because they're material motivated doesn't mean that Krishna consciousness is useless on that basis, or doesn't mean we should be less inspired. We should be very inspired despite what everybody else is doing. So anyways, that's kind of I hope that, is that all right?
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Okay. Is there another question?
Yes, there is another question. May I?
Yes.
Yes, Balaram Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. Prabhu, my question is, if God is characteristically all good, how do you explain in His creation the existence of the hellish planets, which are characteristically places where what is good is in complete absence?
Well, the result, the end result, the end goal is good. Means that, yes, people break the laws of nature, people break the laws of God, they suffer, but the end result is good, means that people are punished, but the point of that punishment is that they're supposed to learn. And like we were discussing, this punishing, it remains within the subtle body. I mean, we may not be conscious of it, thank Krishna, but it remains there. So, in other words, it may take people many lifetimes to wake up because they're so foolish. But the idea is it's supposed to be a learning curve. Means that it's not just pointless punishment. The punishment is meant to act as a teacher to us, to the living entity. And eventually, after being punished for so long, in so many ways, I mean, even in this plane, we are in the material world, we're being punished, right? So, that eventually we turn toward Kṛṣṇa, which brings the highest happiness.
Prabhu, are you saying that the hellish planets are also places for reformation?
Yes.
Okay, now I understood. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Well, by the way, wonderful answer, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.